Hey guys, welcome back. Curtis with ThatTurboDakota. So what we got up next is I need to pull the dash out of the truck, and the reason for that is I need to figure out where I want to put these bulkheads. I'm trying to put them in the center of the firewall right behind the intake. I don't know if that's going to work out or not because that HVAC box behind this dash takes up a lot of room. But the good news is this dash removal video does apply to more than just Dakotas. It's gonna, work with Dakota, Durango, and the full-size Ram. It's actually a bunch of different years, so not just my 2000. Believe it or not, the way they mount these dashes in these vehicles, when they come down the line, is fairly similar throughout the years. I've done, anything from mid-90s up and past, well into 2000. Every time I do a heater core evaporator, I pull the dash out the same way. So I'm excited to show you guys that. I kind of looked around for content, and a lot of the times I really feel like people just they overcomplicate it. They're pulling off the bezel, they're pulling the radio out, and a bunch of stuff that isn't necessary. It's very simple. Let's just not overcomplicate it. Before we get into that, I am going to show you guys that nut cert tool. I did get my new die that was broken, so we're going to go ahead and nut cert the plate for the Dominator. After that, then we'll start going into dash removal. Okay, here's what we got. Again, new die for the nut cert tool. This thing's pretty cool. So I already have the die installed for the correct nut cert that I want to use. So what we do is I take this thing and it threads right on here like so. Then we open the tool up. Now, again, this thing, I know I kind of talked about it yesterday, but you can actually set the preload. So by the time our handles are closed, the nut cert's, right where it needs to be as far as tension goes. After yesterday, I'm just going to kind of ignore it. You can go by the way it feels as long as you don't kill it like I did, obviously, yesterday and snap the thing off in it. So open the jaws. I'm going to screw this new nut cert all the way on here until it sits flush. And you're going to have to excuse me because I am doing it with this one hand. Now, I already went ahead and pre-drilled my holes. So basically, you just push it in there flat. Again, this is a little bit hard for me to do with one hand. And take these things, and we're going to squeeze these handles. Now, again, I don't have the preload mechanism set, so I'm just going to go by the way it feels. I'm going to do it with now down to the point I got one hand on it. And if you come around here on the back, get in here right there. So see what it does. It's basically just a threaded rivet. So right there, I'm done. You can see it perfectly bent over. So come back out here. I spread my tool back open. Right here is a release, so we just thread it out. Again, sorry about the camera. This is really hard to do with one hand. So basically, I'm just unthreading it, and you can see it coming out right there. Almost there. That's it. Boom, nut cert installed. So it is really that easy. So I got all four in for the Dominator. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's an extra hole there. That is for the fuse holder for the main 12-volt power and ground. So I had to put another nut cert in over there. So reach down here on the table. This was the supplied hardware that came with that Dominator ECU. Like I said, it normally has a nut with it. And boom. I mean, I really, really like them. They really don't stick out that far on the back side. The camera can zoom in, so you guys see that. I mean, see we're like just about half the width of my finger. So that's not nothing. But again, another really good option if you want to put threads in somewhere and don't want to mess around, with a nut. So that's done. Let's get into pulling this dash out. Next, okay, time to get into this dash removal. Have my shop helper with me again, and she is chewing up anything she can find on the floor because that's just what she does. And probably getting the things she shouldn't. Yeah, that paper. Yeah. Thank you. Hold on. No. Let go. All right. Anyway, you're supposed to be helping. You're not helping. Anyway. All right, so check this out. I'm going to walk over here real quick. I want to show you guys what this plate looks like. So there's my plate. Dominator's bolted down to it with the nut certs. So that's going to come out pretty good. I'm still kind of playing around with the placement of the first relay. Like I said, there's going to be 2 relays. So that next up, let's talk about the dash removal. On your Dakota Durango, and this will include the Ram as well, they're pretty much mounted all in the same spot. First and foremost, you don't have to take your seats out. The only reason I have my seats out is for the wiring. You really don't need to. I do have an extra step involved, as you can see my shifter there for the manual valve body for the trans. I don't have to pull it all the way out, but I am going to loosen it up and move it off to the side. So when you're removing your dash, first off, unhook your battery. You got airbags there, and you got an airbag there. In the Ram, the Ram's the same way. They've got airbags in them. Just trust me, unhook your battery, just in case. The last thing you want is the airbag coming out in your face. That won't be a bad, or will be a bad day. Excuse me. So when I'm removing the dash out of one of these trucks, first thing I do is drop the steering column. So now I already have mine partially tore apart, but this is the cover that goes underneath the steering column. The first thing you do is you're going to remove that cover. It should have a couple Phillips head screws in it. Again, no big deal, right? So cover removal, first thing, throw that off to the side. Now, depending on the year of the truck, the indicator that typically is up here, it could be digital or it could be analog. This is a 2000. This actually has an analog with the little orange indicator that runs back and forth. So you have to be very, very careful. When you drop your steering column, there's a little cable. Like I said, on mine, it's already removed. You can actually see a little bit of the mechanism. See if I can get it to focus. Is actually right here. This little tab right here is part of that mechanism. It even has a little adjuster. So after you move the lower cover, there might be some kind of bar that you're going to have to remove. Again, you can see just a couple Phillips head. Remove this piece, throw it out of the way. For your steering column, again, make sure you remove the little metal wire that comes down here. If not, you will indefinitely break that, and you don't want to do that. So very carefully remove that little metal wire, push it off to the side. Then you'll see you got a bolt here, and then you have a bolt up on this side. You're going to remove both those bolts. When you remove those bolts, your steering column will actually come down, and you can lay it in the front seat of the vehicle. Right? So that's easy. Pretty easy to follow so far. Now, the second thing I like to do is these dash have a couple different mounting points. It's going to have one in each corner. So you see that bolt right there? And you also see a slot. So really what you can do is you can just loose from the factory. When these things come down the assembly line, they'll put that bolt in, they'll leave it loose, and they'll slide the bottom of that dash in, and it'll follow that groove, and then they'll actually take the whole dash and roll it up into place, and then you got a couple bolts across the top, and then they'll run those bolts in the top. And basically that's how it comes out. It's no more complicated than that. But you don't forget, typically behind this panel right here, there should be a couple extra bolts to mount that thing. Also, that's your pendant. So what we got so far, we'll just do a recap. Plastic cover, we're going to take this piece out right here. You're going to unhook your little metal cable for your indicator. You've got these two bolts here. Drop your steering column down. You're going to have to remove a little bit of plastic. You remove your kick panels on each side of the vehicle. I also recommend removing the A-pillar trim. Depending on the year, I know I already got that side out on mine because of the gauges, but whatever. So you got that. You'll remove the bracket, and typically there's a bracket with a couple bolts you move out of the center. That's no big deal. Then you're going to come down here. You're going to loosen this bolt right here, and you're going to go to the other side of the vehicle and loosen that one down there. And just loose, right? Leave them in, just back them out like a ½ inch. And then you're going to come up here and start taking your bolts out on top. Now be careful, if you are a Ram or a Dakota owner, you know how if these things sat outside for a while, this front or this upper cover does get very, very, very brittle. So just keep that in mind when you're pulling this apart. Be very careful with it. In fact, as you're pulling these bolts out on top, you might want to hold a little pressure on your dash to hold it in place, and then go ahead and run those bolts out. Once you get those bolts out, the dash is going to want to tend to drop back a little bit, and that's going to allow you to, there's a blower motor resistor in there. Depending on your year, you'll have some cables you're going to have to unhook. You want to go ahead and get that stuff unhooked. Then you can take your bottom anchor out, or bottom bolts out, and basically you can take that dash and move it, but you'll just kick the passenger side out. Because typically, the guys, that are doing this, they're going to want their HVAC box out because you're going to do your heater core. So you'll take that dash and kick it sideways, and then there's more than enough room to get to the bolts, the studs in the firewall. If you come around here, all the Dakotas and the Durangos will have studs in the firewall. You can see the one right there, and there's one right there. So there's a couple of those things scattered. Depending on the year of the vehicle, you might have one hidden behind the bracket for the AC dryer, so don't forget that. If your truck sat outside for a long time, I highly, highly, highly recommend spraying them things down because you do not want to break. That stud actually mounts in the plastic of the box, and what you do is you risk breaking the plastic on that HVAC box. I actually have a spare one over here. I'll show you guys real quick. As I'm doing another project with my 12 valve. And see right here, let's see if I can get it to zoom. That's actually where that stud drops into. There's a couple different mounting points, and you can see it's broke. When I went to pull the box out of that truck, the studs were rusty. I started running the nuts out, and sure enough, it turned the stud and broke the plastic. So just be mindful of that. So I know we did a quick talk. As you see, my shop helper is down here biting my leg. Woo, getting a little bit wild. So quick talk. I'm gonna put the camera down, and I'm gonna get after it. And as I go, I'll show you what's up. Okay, so let's get into it. So first order of business, we're gonna remove this piece right here. This is under that plastic knee bolster cover. It just has some Phillips. See right there? It had 4 of them. I just took my drill, took 4 of them out. Now, anytime you see one of these yellowish gold connectors, that is for your airbag system. Be very, very careful with this. Don't pull on the wires. Always pull from the connector, and just be careful with them. If not, you'll put this thing back together, and you'll indefinitely have a airbag light on. So what I have to do is I have to remove it from here, and then I'll allow this piece to swing back out of the way so there's no interference. So let me go and grab something real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, so I need to release this clip. So if you look at this thing, hopefully the camera will zoom in. I don't put my hand in the way. There's actually a way to release this thing right here and slide that off of there. So if you pull down on this tab, it should allow you to slide it one way, or you can take your flat screwdriver, you can get under here like this, and very, very carefully pry that through. There's one, and then again, not pulling on the wires. This is one of these Christmas trees. Bad boys are tight. Actually, I got a better idea. Hold on a second. I'm not going to cut it, but I do have a pair of these nose pliers, and I can very carefully get under it and just more or less pry the thing out. Just like that. So, that's removed there. So we'll let it hang there. Now, we're going to drop the steering column. So what I do is I've got a 10mm swivel socket. We come up here in the top. Loosen it. Now, I'm not taking them all the way out until it gives a chance for this thing to drop. So, there's one right there. And then while supporting the steering column with my hand, run the second one out. Right there. So that's good. And then, back under here, let's say there's 2 more. You see the steering column move. I don't know if you guys can see that. And again, I'm going to support with my hand. There it goes. Drop. Just like that. So, I'll back up so you can see it. Steering column is down. Again, you can typically lay that thing in the front seat of the vehicle. And you can see where the seat mounts. So, you might even be able to squeeze it in just to get it down. Again, the reason why we're doing that is when this dash comes down, it lets us swing that dash down out of the way without any issues. And you can notice my plastic covers and stuff are off, but that's not going to matter for you guys. So, that stuff out, and then again, I believe they got 13 millimeters down here. I got one there. I got one there on the other side. So let me run back over here, move some stuff out of the way. Grab my 13, and then we'll get after those couple next. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this piece right here. If you look down under here, there's a Phillips head, and you got a couple up here. So let me zap that out of the way real quick. Okay, so I got those screws out. Like I said, there's one in each corner, one there, one on the glove box side, two in the top, and then two in the bottom. That moves out of the way so I can make sure I can get to this bracket down here. Then I'm going to take these few connectors off real quick, and then we'll go to the bracket. Okay, panel removed. Had a couple clips. You had to press tabs right there, and right there you press those tabs, and then the connectors, again, that's for the airbag. Remember what I was telling you, it's yellow. So those two connectors just unclip and pull it off the dash. So I'm going to move this piece out of the way and then get down there. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is you look down in here, there's a bracket. So you got some 10 millimeters, 1, 2, and there's 2, if you can't see them. They're back in there behind that piece of carpet. You might be able to see them if the camera focuses for a second for you. There's 2 there, and there should be some down here on the other side. I do believe down here in the corner, there's one way back there in the corner. So there's one here on each side and 2 in the center. I'm gonna get that bracket out of the way next. Okay, guys, that's the bracket I'm talking about, and it goes back behind there. There was 1 bolt on the passenger side, 2 in the top center. You got the 2 on the driver's. No big deal. On to the next. So before we start loosening our 13 mil, I do want to point out, depending on what truck you have, if you have like the premium sound package, you got a factory amplifier. So make sure you come under here. There's little tabs you press on and pull those. So don't forget that part either. So go up in here, my 13 mil. And you see the dash move, right? You guys saw that thing fall a little bit. Dash move there. Then we're going to get around here to the other side and get that one. Take her. Walk over to here. Excuse me while I switch hands. And again, you got the other one right here. So I'm not going to take them all the way out. We'll just run them out about a 1/2 inch. Now I got all that stuff out. Run up here, start tooling the bolts. So next up we have an 8 millimeter 1/4 inch swivel, and I use just a long extension on my electric impact, and I go up through there and we're going to pull all these bolts out. Okay, so all the bolts are out of the top, and as you can see, the dash is ready to come out. I still do have these 13s in, so now I can go ahead and pull them out fully. So give me a second, switch my socket, and I'm going to pull those out, and we'll pull the dash out. Okay, guys, a couple things I mentioned real quick that I almost forgot. Ground straps, driver's side, you got a little guy right here. Don't forget to take that off. It'll hold the dash up. Over on the passenger side, same thing, but you need a 10 millimeter socket. There's a nut and a stud. And then antenna. If I didn't mention it before, on this, my 2000 Dakota, you actually drop the glove box, and if you squeeze the back of the glove box tabs, and it'll allow it to swing down out of the way, and then you see the male and the female part of the antenna that you can pull apart. So those 3 things I wanted to mention. And then as you pull the dash back up here on top, there's another connector for that blower motor resistor that I was talking about, and it has a little tab on the top of it. You put your thumb on and then grab the connector, never grab it by the wires, and then release it as well. Okay, had to put the camera down as I needed my hands. As you can see, the thing just jumps right out of there. Not even a big deal. Again, there's a couple things back here on my 2000, and that might change a little bit, you know, through the years, so just keep that in mind. The one connector I was telling you about for your blower motor resistors up here on top, and it's just a tang, you push on, right, and grab the connector, work that out of there like that. I got another connector right here. Again, you press there on the center, grab the connector, release it, and that's pretty much it. I mean, you know, if you're doing your HVAC box, you don't have to pull the whole dash out, but to be honest with you, if you wanted to, you could. You know, that's up to you. The only real thing you have left is our giant bulkhead connector for all the dash functions. It's up underneath there. I think it's like an 8mm or a 10 in the center. You take that bolt out and then the connector comes out, and that's pretty much it. If you had like 2 people, you could get behind that thing and just move the whole thing out, you know, if you wanted just to get out of the way, or you had to replace the top of your dash pad or whatever you're trying to do. But that's it. I mean, you know, 20 minutes. Took me a little bit longer just as I'm going back and forth and narrating the thing. But in my opinion, that's the easiest way to do it. You know, the wire harness and stuff stays in the dash with all the other stuff. There's no reason to pull that junk out individually. It just doesn't make sense. But yeah. So that's where I'm going to end this one today. Now that I've got the thing kind of pulled back, I'm going to actively look for somewhere to put our bulkheads. That is my intentions in pulling the dash back. Wherever that's going to end up. If you remember that, you saw the other episode. I figure out where to put these 2 guys. So that's why I pulled the dash back. I'm trying to get it in the center of the firewall. It may work out, it may not. You know, it is what it is. So we'll figure it out. Just to recap, as far as tools needed to do this, you got a 13mm socket. You've got a 10mm socket. I used an 8mm socket. I use a short Phillips head. And then if you have like a small pocket screwdriver, that works really good for the connectors to help release your connectors. And that's pretty much it. I did grab a pair of this crooked needle nose just to pull them little Christmas tree clips or brackets from the one yellow airbag connector. Again, be very careful when you guys do that stuff. That's pretty much it. I mean, it's that simple. Let's take a step back so you can see. No more complicated than that. That connector I was telling you about is right there. That's that big bulkhead. Really, for me, I might actually end up pulling the dash out. It's probably going to be easier. We'll see. Depends on where I put those connectors. If I have to test the dash out, like I said, all I'm going to do is take that, put a socket on that bolt through the center of that. As you release that bolt, that whole connector pulls out. I'll get somebody in here. We'll, you know, pull this dash out and sit it on the ground somewhere. But again, thanks for watching. Hopefully next time you tune in, I'll have the bulkhead connectors in place, and then we will start going through wiring. I'll show you how I go about that. I'll show you my wire diagram I got made up. It's pretty cool. So I'm able to write on the front of it with like a dry eraser marker. So see you guys next time.